Hello everyone, Casualers here, and I have a video that's pretty different from my usual content. I'm sure a lot of you might be unaware, but I love collecting physical video games and hunting for them, whether that's in a game store or garage sales, the list goes on. My brother is very much the same, and even more so than I am, but that means we often talk about the prices of games in the secondhand market and deals we found. Recently, my brother pointed out that one of the Xenoblade games has seen a pretty shocking price increase over the last few months, which I find incredibly interesting. So I wanted to go over the changes in price for each of the Xenoblade Chronicles games and provide my thoughts on why we're seeing these shifts. There are several sites you can go to gauge these trends, but my usual go-to is Pricecharting.com, where they find the average price in a current time period through eBay sales, as well as their own marketplace. The site provides a lot of information from the game's status to showing information from years ago. While I use this tool a lot and I think it's a great guide, it is not perfect. So I would say the trends are more important than the exact values. I just realized that this kind of sounds like a sponsorship, but it's not? Yeah. Also, these prices are going to be based off of the North American releases, so we're going to be sticking with United States currency and not looking at PAL releases or anything of the sorts there. Anyways, let's start off with the most recent release in the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition officially released in May of 2020, retailing at most places for $60. Usually this is a common trend with recent AAA releases where the price will be lower than the retail price, since a good amount of these auctions are people that picked up the game and are reselling it, whether they finished it, didn't like it, and that's crazy to think about, but you do you, or whatever reason. A few curves exist, but they manage to stay within that $40 to $50 price range, so there really isn't much interesting to go on here. But what if we took a look at the original Wii release of Xenoblade Chronicles? For people that were hunting down this bad boy back in the day, you likely remember the absolutely ludicrous prices that came as a result of its limited print and exclusivity deal with GameStop. To paint the image more clearly, we lived in a timeline where this was a thing. There was also a lot of controversy in late 2013 about a potential second print due to an increase in stock, and the whole scenario was just an utter mess. Regardless, we can certainly see that price point reflecting the rare nature of the title back in the first half of 2013, with the listed average peak of the game being $118.34 in February. The price then starts to decline amidst the appearance of more copies and the controversy in late 2013, reaching practically a 50% decrease. Even still, between $40 to $60 for a used Wii game years after the release of a Wii U is quite impressive. This was also very close to the time where GameStop announced that they were going to be doing a Black Friday sale for Xenoblade Chronicles and Metroid Prime Trilogy at about $40 instead of the usual price tag that you would see. Once 2015 and 2016 roll around, the price of Xenoblade Chronicles starts to gradually drop even more, and the reason is due to increased accessibility. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D released in April 2015, and the Wii version was ported to the Wii U eShop in April of 2016. Although the Wii U had nowhere close to the install base of the Wii and Xenoblade Chronicles 3D was exclusive to the new 3DS, interested players no longer had to scavenge for a Wii copy of the title as there were options provided. From there, the game maintained this nice price range of $30 to $40 completed in box. But we see that all change in September of 2019, which marked the official announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition in the Nintendo Direct. 4 methods of playing Xenoblade Chronicles now existed, and that $118 price tag from 2013 was a memory long since past. Currently, the game rests around the average $25 point range, which is so crazy to have seen a game like this lose value so much over time. As for Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, it shared a similar decrease. It retailed for about $40 and actually managed to float around that price point consistently, but took a similar nosedive with Definitive Edition's release and now rests at an average sub $20 price point. The next main title, Xenoblade Chronicles X, has a lot less history than the first one, which is certainly reflected in its sales and prices. Released in North America in December of 2015, Xenoblade X again shares the trend of floating under retail on the secondhand market. Then, it starts to dip, and pretty noticeably. the lowest being October of 2018, where it averaged less than $15 complete in box. That's certainly a far cry from its predecessor, and what's even crazier is that the release of Xenoblade Chronicles on the eShop didn't shake its price in the slightest. It actually kept declining. I have two reasons to believe this is the case. One, Xenoblade Chronicles X was released for the Wii U, a system that, I personally like it, but kind of failed commercially. And two, the game was pretty different from the original title, with a heavier focus on gameplay than narrative and the much more prevalent sci-fi approach. It's not all bad, however, as Xenoblade Chronicles X has been seeing a slight increase, with a notable bump happening with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition's release date. This is usually a common trend you'll see with games in a series where the release of a new title or a remake will inspire people to go check out other entries in the series, which will boost their prices. A key example of that would actually be Paper Mario, as around the time of Origami King's release date last year, the 1000-Year Door saw a spike in price. The $18 average jump to $25 isn't anything monumental, but I think it shows that people playing Definitive Edition have a desire to try the other games in the series. Plus, fans have been hungry for a Xenoblade export to the Switch, since it's one of the few large titles that hasn't received the treatment, and Definitive Edition has given them renewed hope. Thus, the demand and subsequent price of X has begun to shift. The last of the large titles is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, released for the Nintendo Switch in December of 2017. Once again, we have the usual trend of keeping to a range after release, but we have this weird dip followed by a sizable upwards trend. My first thought is that this trend came as a result of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition's announcement, but instead of decreasing the price of the other releases of the original game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 received a boost. What's super strange though, is the dip at first, almost like it took fans a couple of months to go, oh, maybe I should play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 since it's already on the Switch. And that's the key sentiment here, as we see the growth right before the May release date, a decline likely due to fans spending all their time playing Definitive Edition and not considering a sequel, and then boom! A noteworthy increase that now puts Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in the best position it's been. We're likely seeing a larger jump because people have now finished the first title and are moving on to the second one, and I think that's awesome. Just the idea of people getting really enthralled and immersed into the series so they're hungry to play more, I love that. New fans are always going to be introduced the most with new releases, so I'm excited to see how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 could mark an even greater growth for the fanbase. But here we are, the primary reason that I wanted to talk about this topic. Xenoblade Chronicles 2: Torna the Golden Country. Serving as a prequel to the base game, Torna was a story expansion DLC that released in September 2018, but was also given the luxury of a physical release. The digital and physical versions released a week apart, with the digital copy being $30 and the physical being $40, but it also included the DLC expansion pass. A physical DLC package with likely few to no reprints is certainly going to bolster your value, but what's also going to do it is that pesky expansion pass code. If that code's been used, it's going to affect the value, and unfortunately some unaware buyers might not realize that the used copy of Torna they purchased doesn't include a new code. I hate this game! Torna floated around the average price of high 20s to low 30s for a while, but that all changed in the later half of 2020. Exactly like the base game, Torna jumped in price around September and is now riding the smoothest curve I've seen in a while, with its peak being $57.51 average, which is higher than the retail value. I believe there are three major variables here at play. First, hungry Definitive Edition newcomers are chomping at the bit for more Xenoblade content, and I'm sure if they know it's a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that certainly helps. Next, as I mentioned, a physical DLC package with an expansion code that might be hard to come by is definitely at play. Finally, what I like to call pandemic prices. See, when the pandemic hit the States around March 2020, game prices, especially undesirable retro ones, have skyrocketed. For example, a game called Dokapon Kingdom was released for the PS2, but on the Wii it's one of the most expensive titles, and it was that way for years. That complete in-box price of $110 in February exploded to a peak average of $186 in December, which is ridiculous. And this isn't just Dokapon. Other games share a similar trend, such as boxed Pokemon games hitting outlandish prices. My primary belief is one that's probably pretty relatable. People are cooped up inside and need to spend their time somehow, and playing video games, especially retro ones from someone's childhood that they might have sold, is a common way to alleviate the boredom. So the demand is rising and the prices reflect that. This trend altogether didn't hit the Xenoblade Chronicles series very hard, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did budge Torna 2 and X slightly. As seen with the original Xenoblade Chronicles, guessing the growth or fluctuation of game prices is very hard to do. Yet, if I were to expect any of these physical titles to continually increase in price, it would have to be Torna due to the previously discussed variables. But that takes care of every Xenoblade Chronicles game's physical release and the main point I wanted to tackle with this video. As I mentioned, this is pretty different than my usual series, but I've been thinking of releasing these quicker discussion videos from time to time. If that's something you'd be interested in, then let me know in the comments or like this video as I have a list of other topics I could easily discuss. While I'm not as well versed in Xenogears and Xenosaga, I could also release a video exploring their price trends if you enjoyed this topic. I think some of the variables that we talked about, such as pandemic prices, as well as just how the Xenoblade game's success could play a role in their changes or fluctuations. Regarding other content, I'm currently writing a more formal analysis and have a list of other ideas to tackle, so depending on how my thesis work goes, there might be more content hitting the channel this year than last year. Finally, I'd just like to thank you guys for all the support that you always provide, and if you're new to the channel or have seen some of my videos before and you want to subscribe for more Xenoblade or other video game content, then it's always greatly appreciated. Anyways, thank you guys as always, and until next time.